dear friends, although we're at the threshold of the tribulation, don't be scared, it won't be that long. The deeper we go into the tribulation, the more the pace of time will be increasing, and at the end, when the ordeal is over, it will be like it has been just a couple of years. That kind of perception we will have. So this episode will be a collection of all the information that I could find in the prophecies in terms of how will life be on the new earth after the tribulation. But first I will start with a few viewer questions because I guess many of us are wondering the same thing. Like, for example, are we already in the pre-tribulation? Well, I guess strictly speaking, the pre-tribulation will start when the natural catastrophes will start, at least in Western Europe, in America, like obviously. But yet the new passports are a fact. Just 1.5 hour drive from where I live, there is already an entire city. Earlier there were just some rural regions, but now there is an entire city which is completely, you can walk around only with the new pass. Yeah, that's the reality. The other day I heard that they are now voting that only people with passes can go in, for example, shops for clothing, etc. It has been decades ago, Trok Vyacheslav told us that only people with passes will be allowed in all shops, and for the non-pass people, only the most essential food stuff. That's all, nothing else will be allowed. Of course, first they will have local passes, and then they will make it on state level, and then on European Union level. That's obvious. Will this entire procedure complete in the pre-tribulation or even before that? I don't know. But I placed the new passports in the pre-tribulation because I was just making an assumption. But now that it happens, and we read in the Bible that the system for marking will be ready before the arrival of the Dajjal, yeah, why not a couple of years before that? I mean, at the moment they are setting it up. So, as I said many times, this timeline is not and cannot be very reliable in terms of what comes first and what second and exactly when. And now the second question. The Dajjal is sometimes described as politician. In other prophecy, he gives concerts around. Other prophecies say he will be very ugly and repulsive, and others say that he will appear very attractive to the public. So can that be reconciled, or is just contradictory information in the prophecies? I think most likely it will be reconciled, especially the concerts and the political career, because he will not be only politician, he will be also a very religious person, and eventually he will say he's Christ himself, so he will definitely have a mystic aura, a mystic touch, and in these concerts he may not be necessarily the main singer. He has a team of singers and artists of all types, but most likely on the concerts he will mostly do his miracles. So he doesn't have to be a professional musician. So these two things, the political career and the concerts, I think go very well together. And as far as being described as attractive and deformed at the same time, probably it could be reconciled, because in some Muslim sources it clearly says to the believers he will look ugly, and to all others he will look very charming. So probably that's how it will be. And as I told you in one of the previous episodes, I had like a vision of one of what I believe is one of the secondary antichrists, local to my area. Or he could be even also the main one, I'm not sure, because he is already something in good, quite famous in the European Union, but I could not find those ethnic origin roots. Anyway, how did he look like? most people, when they would see him on the street, they would describe him as a very neat guy with this modern, I don't know what you call it, goat beard or something like that. I mean, in general, I did not see any bodily defects. He was rather short and yeah, with that dark hair. But to me personally, he looked disgusting, and I had a very strong nausea, really holding my stomach, like I was feeling my bowels will come out. It was so disgusting to see the devil himself, indeed. It's just the most repulsive sight and stink one can imagine. But that was only the first time I saw him, and at that time I could clearly see who he is. Now, last year, when I found out his actual identity, and I was browsing his photographs from the European Union, with the politicians and all that, I did not have that extreme nausea anymore. And if I didn't know who he was actually, and somebody asked me, is the man good looking, I would say, yeah, quite normal. So probably all these seemingly contradictory descriptions will turn out to be true, all of them. So the entire earthly realm will look quite different in those times. The weather patterns will not have these harsh extremes of hot summers and winters like now. It will be more like an eternal spring. The layout of the land masses could be also possibly completely different. Even some scientific penguinian studies point out that we are heading again towards having one single continent. Of course, they say that will be in millions of years, but they say that Gondwana was also millions of years ago, and that was not really so, because this one single big continent was in the memory of the ancient tribes. And obviously they wouldn't remember and put on maps something that was there billions of years ago. They were much more practical people. Maybe that was thousands of years ago. So the references to radical changes in the way the landmass looks, they are countless. They are in countless prophecies. Many of them also say that entire nations will be wiped out. Many countries will be completely submerged. However, very few specify which exactly. Probably the most complete list is in the Nina prophecies. I could not verify if the Templar prophecies are genuine. They seem to be, but it is hard to prove. Anyway, they are along the lines of what we have been discussing for so many episodes, and in them specifically, it says that continents will appear and disappear. Very similar to what we read in the Mother Shipton prophecies. She even says that the old land, the one on which we walk upon now, will be too contaminated, and the future civilization of man will thrive on the clean land that comes out of the sea, which will have very fresh and tender grass. A bit more on the credibility of the Mother Shipton prophecies will follow in the episode about UK. Many times when I was reading the prophecies about the war or about the disasters, it was specified that the angels and God, they were aware that these things will cause so much pollution and contamination with disease or chemicals, that as the things were happening, sometimes God would send rain or even birds or angel to clean up a little bit. Otherwise, nobody would survive. It will be so toxic everywhere around. So it could get extremely turbulent, but there will be no end of the world, that's for sure. And towards the very end of the tribulation, in the Nina and also the Vyacheslav prophecies, they both say that angels will repair the land masses, because the mountains will be like broken, and there will be large cavities. And from below, the man would see only like a large chunk the size of a country flying, but in reality that would be a new land mass delivered by angels to repair the earth. And almost all animal species will disappear towards the end of the tribulation. They will all return on the new earth, but in their original, soft and friendly form. Because as explained in the set books, this extinction of animal forms is just a fantasy because of our ignorance. The phenomena as such does not even exist. However, the species manifest or disappear temporarily from the theater scene of Earth, depending on the level of the consciousness of the people. And sometimes disappear, sometimes they adapt, like now we are showing our worst colors, a sample of how evil a human can get, and many of the species have also become quite inimical. They bite, they sting, which is not normal to them. And the penguins observe that and make it even worse, the entire situation, by telling us, you see, that is normal, that was intended by nature, almost as if intended by God. So the more evil you become, the more natural you are. That's what the penguins are convincing us. And those of them who really believe that being cruel and evil is natural, well, they will go to a place where that is really, really natural. As a side note, a few months ago I spoke with a person who, let's say, was my friend in the past. I'm not sure anymore. The way he's changing dramatically and surely taking the mark of the beast. I was trying to warn him, like for example in the Prophecies it was written decades or in some cases even a couple of 100 years ago, how bomb attacks will be organized and then identification, new documents will be forced on that ground. It's a deceit. And in reply, he just laughed at me. He said, why are you wasting my time with such old news, such tactful approaches, he said. They have been used since thousands of years, he said, by the governments to manage their people. Nothing new under the sun. You can read about thousands of them even from Roman times. This is something normal. This is the way human society works. You are very, very late with reading the news, he said. Few thousand years you are late. You don't know how the world is and what is normal. And he was laughing at me. He said, of course, this is the job of this type of services, and that's what they're gonna do. That's what they have been always doing, or at least the penguins convinced him so. And sadly, souls which are really convinced that this is normal will be, in a couple of short years, really transferred to a place where indeed that is the norm, a place with eternal fire and smelly hairy creatures. So there is a video called Who Built the Nurages in Sardinia, and that video touches very, very profound questions, like how the reality around us, the natural world, actually is a reflection of the consciousness of its inhabitants. And it can change very dramatically, not just by the, ecological projects they will develop, but just like that, magically, and we will witness that in a decade or so, when the harvest from natural fruits, which will be of course much tastier than now, of these plastic fruits, this harvest will be so abundant that I don't know if there will be any even need of agriculture or anything like that. Our grandchildren will be almost a different human species, and not like us. They're astral vision will be so much opened. How do we know about that? Bruno Groening, he said that very soon an age is coming when everybody will have a vision like me. Barbara Marciniak also prophesied that gradually within a couple of 100 years everybody's vision will open. Just a couple of people here and there will remain. They will be like us, and they will be kind of museum pieces, like relics from the old time. Exactly as now we have people who are blind and they need a special white walking cane because can't see like most other people. In the same way, in a couple of 100 years, those who are clothed like us will be exceptions. Recently I found a new source again from Bulgaria for prophecies, a source which I consider to be of topmost purity because the saint herself dictated everything hours before she died. Her name was Prepodobna Testoina, and she was a saint of very, very high level, often seen levitating openly. So some 100 years ago, or a little bit more, she said that actually in 150 or 200 years everybody will be like me. Mother Shipton also gives the same hint, and probably this quote from the Islamic scriptures could point to the same thing. When the Mahdi appears, Allah will cause power of vision and hearing to be manifested in the believers, that the Mahdi will call to the whole world from where he is, with no postman involved, and they will hear and even see him. In other similar quotes, they say that believers will be able to see through the end of the continent and the entire earth as if there are no mountains obstructing his vision. Here is the naive penguinian fantasy about the new earth. And here, I mean, even the nature itself is getting ready for the new earth, for the new pleasant climate. As far as the social structure on the new earth, there will be kingdoms, but not oppressive as the treacherous penguins have convinced us all kingdoms are. Just on the contrary, they will serve the righteousness inside the people, like an organization that will allow even more beauty to flourish instead of telling the people what to do in their own lives. According to some sources, there will be 10 kingdoms in the Bible. They have even the exact measurements of the new earth. I'm not sure if that survived the corrections, so I'm not gonna bring it up here, but it is there. And Christ, as a king, he will preside over these kings of the other kingdoms. He will live to a long age, according to some, I believe, Catholic prophecies, over 80 or over 90. And after he departs, his son will sit on the throne. As mentioned previously, according to Muslim sources, Christ will want to be buried in the Kaaba, which will be destroyed during the Tribulation, but I guess not the foundation itself, just the top structure, probably. I guess, I would say. There is still one place left in the Kaaba, exactly for one more burial. And it is wrong to say that the Kaaba is a Muslim place, because if you have seen the survivors, actually previously the Islam and Christianity were just two branches of the very same religion. Islamic seers have had visions that Christ will do the Hajj together with the survived Muslims, and he will keep very close friendship with those fighters from the War of Armageddon, which fought together with him against the Dajjal. I hope that by now, after seeing the previous episodes, there is no confusion left that Christ is a Christian figure. Actually, they named the Christianity after Christ. They created this religion and used his name as a trademark to make it popular, exactly like the cuckoo, which bears its children in other birds' nests, so that they will feed it. How clever. And that's exactly what the church did. They knew it was very long time ago. People still had memories of Christ. They were following his doctrine. And then the church came and started burning those who knew the teachings of Christ and used his name to create their brand, and then confused the minds of the people with all kinds of mixtures. There are still some of the teachings in Christ left in the Christianity, but they didn't leave it because they wanted any truth in it, but just because they had to leave a little bit to bamboozle the people. Otherwise, the general population at that time would not buy the full thing. And that's why there are some churches until today which are much better and closer to Christ until now. And they were founded by people who still knew and heard something from the older times, when the Bogomils, when the Cathars were still living according to the real teachings of Christ. So in some secret places, some memories were kept. But even amongst the Christians which belong to various churches today, even amongst them, there are pure souls who will remain with Christ. But for them, the Bible is more like a symbol. They see the truth, but it's more like fill in the blanks. And because their soul is pure, when they read the Bible, they only kind of see what is the truth, and they only take that, and then their pure consciousness fills in the rest, so they get the right picture. Don't go with the Dajjal, remain with Christ. Otherwise, the official church, of course, will tell them to get marked, and of course they will support it with quotes from the Bible about loving each other, as usual. So when Christ himself comes on the new earth, he will not maintain this church which betrayed him, the church of the Dajjal. He will teach again the same old teachings he gave to the people 1,000 years ago. Well, some believe it's 2,000, it doesn't matter. The earth, the land will be transformed into its pristine state. The human species will be also modified to make us again proper humans instead of genetically modified zombies. And the teachings will be also the same original teachings according to some sources. I don't want to repeat myself. The religion will be called the White Brotherhood, and the main name used for God, the Creator, maybe the Holy Father in Christianity or the Holy Spirit, I'm not sure, will be Ra. This is not confirmed yet, but there is such a prophecy as well, and I'm not sure it is very far-fetched, because Rama in Hinduism is obviously one of the main names of God. And in Islam also they have a list of, was it 100 or 1,000 names of Allah, and Rama is the first or one of the first. Muslim people, they even sell like t-shirts with Ramha, the name of God. And of course when I say Ra, it sounds so Egyptian, but we know very well why we have such a huge army of well-paid penguins with iron ties to bamboozle us, even to the point that we forget who we are, let alone everything else. So who am I? In some Christian prophecies, they say that when Christ comes, he will change the law about killing children. So usually that is interpreted as he will make abortion illegal, but I'm not sure. Maybe it's that, or maybe he will be very strongly opposed and make strict rules to be sure that none of these children sacrifices, sacrificial killing of children goes on, which currently the Satanists have turned into their favorite pastime. So that was also definitely mentioned in the prophecies, and many prophecies say that it will be so the will of Christ that on the new earth people will live in extreme luxury, not just rich, but really luxury. While during the tribulation, the Islamic sources describe the overall situation like the living people who will pass by a grave of somebody who died and they will envy him, why didn't I die? But after the tribulation, it will be quite different. There will be so much gold and riches that after Christ gives more than enough to everybody, he will just ask all the people on earth, is there a single one of you that feels that you did not get enough and you need more money? Nobody will reply, but after some time one person will think, they are giving money for free, like gold for free as much as you want. Isn't it better like to be prudent and maybe take a bit more, one never knows? And he said, I did not have enough. And then Christ gave him so much more gold, like double or triple, compared to what he gives to other people. And after some time, this person, he actually thought about what he has done and realized that he was actually greedy. He doesn't need all that gold. Indeed, he felt a little bit not very good to have without any special reason more than the others, and he submitted a request to return the extra gold. But sadly, from the gold treasury, he received the reply that no, we cannot accept it. We only give, we don't take back, and you will have to live with what you have done. And this person was left like that, with all that gold until the rest of his life, so that he can learn, because gold is very heavy. That's the burden of my grief. He felt that until the end of his life. According to Alexander Paramonov, that would be the gold per person will be like 5 kilos per person, as far as I remember, and the amount in those times will be absolutely enough to have a very good home and all the food and everything else that one requires for one's entire life. There will be no businesses like with advertising and profit. That will not be needed because the drive for making profit will be irrelevant in that world where everybody has enough. Creativity will be the main driving force. And indeed, if you remember in older videos, there was this case of, it seems really genuine case of time travel from future, when some kids, they used the teleportation in time device or something of their father, and they got stuck in our time. The device was damaged or something, I don't know, they couldn't return. And then they contacted Vadim Chernobrov to write in his book, to leave a message that they are okay, because they knew that their father will have his book in future in his library. So these two kids, they remained here for the rest of their lives in our time. They told only to Vadim Chernobrov about this occasion, and they left this message. And later on, he, when they visited him and told him and begged him to include their message in his book and told him the story, he did not believe them. But when he wrote the book, and after many years, when he wrote the book, and it was the same name about time travel, and he was very surprised. Then he remembered the case and realized it was all true, because when they visited him, that was, I believe, years, decades ago, before he wrote the book, and it was about time travel machine. And at that time, he was like, this is really a book that I'm not gonna write. He found the idea ridiculous. And after many years, he started this time-changing experiments, and then he wrote a book, and then the publishers actually, they insisted on the same name, and only at that time this story came to his mind, and he remembered everything. He included the message, and then by then those kids were no longer there. I believe they already died, but they had their kids here in our time, and he found them, Vadim Chernobrov. They didn't know anything. The kids which did the time travel, they did not even tell their own relatives here. They told the story only to Vadim Chernobrov. And then he vaguely remembered a few things. He asked, he didn't take them seriously, but he asked about the future of the world and in Russia, and they said, "Oh, it's very good. It's extremely good, the future." But in that time, it is not Russia anymore. But they didn't say what it is, and they were very careful. Like they obviously didn't want to mention much about history, as if they were not trusting him a lot. But what is very interesting and very relevant about these kids that came from future, they were extremely intelligent, and they were talented in all arts. Arts were very important to them. They made exhibitions. They were very talented musicians, everything. So that confirms. It's exactly like heaven, where arts are very important. Creating beauty, expanding beauty. Also, with sound and images, one creates worlds like ours. The foundation is actually art of our earth, subtle art. But the importance of these things, most people will realize only later. Also, the importance of crystals. Lucky will be those that will keep powerful crystals near their body during the tribulation. Christ himself, when he comes, according to Kalki Purana, of course, he will be also very much into crystals. He will wear, as all other incarnations, his Kaustuba gem. So actually, I think that the best description of the future world will be the description of the higher realms in our solar system, as seen in this video. And the Christian prophecies say that there will be no weapons on the new earth. Whatever tanks and all these pistols we have, it will be all melted and made into agricultural tools or other pieces of art, whatever metal items. There will be no people who believe in war at all. Those devils who talk on the loudspeakers from the tribunes, convincing you that war is necessary because of love towards your family, for the safety of your family, for the well-being and beauty, and preserving everything good, and even the Bible, and even Christ in his name. All these type of creatures, they will be sent to a place where like-minded souls gather, and they can convince each other of democracy and bomb each other every single day. And all those who took their advice, even unwillingly, they will also not enter the new earth. Their excuses and explanations will have no value. The angels will assist humans with advice and action according to this, and actually quite few other prophecies. Mother Shipton, also Nina and Alexander Paramonov, they both say that after some time when people return to their senses, they will be also freely able to travel to maybe like the first, uh, the lowest level of heaven, even. So, this great purge of the apocalyptic times, the tribulation, it will be the big push, the birth of the new age, but it will not be the only push. There could be a couple of minor ones uh, after that as well. Not good, but they will be definitely, because that is from the set material. That's why he says that actually, really, the earth will be paradise, according to what most people imagine paradise to be right now, in about 55 years, counted from today as I make this video. The other source that describes exactly the same situation is Slava Sivrukova. She talks about a couple of great purges, this being the biggest one. I don't know what will be the nature of the other purges. They will not be as dramatic as the apocalyptic times, and they could be just a question of adjusting to the new human species, which we, the earthly souls, will be wearing as costumes. Because Mother Shipton, she says that actually the new age will start after that, when one generation grows and is being brought up the way the angels advise the people. And the practical knowledge of how to live in the new way, it will be transmitted by angels, but also by the Slavic people who will have at that time this mission to teach practical things on how to live in angelic way. And that comes not only in the Slavic prophecies themselves, also some of the Western prophecies like Catholic and Edgar Cayce, they all say that this way of godly life will start from the east and gradually engulf the entire earth. Now, it's an interesting question. Who will remain on this earth when all the godly people will be taken and lifted up in another dimension during the rapture episode, which is described in such a way that the godly people will be taken to heaven and only those who remain in hell will remain on earth. The earth will be like hell at that time. Well, about all these mystical experiences like the judgment and this episode with the rapture and who remains and who goes, I make no claim that the version which I will present is the most correct, but still I think it is fairly good because it's compiled on the basis of many prophecies. So, the more developed souls, especially those who would have finished with their earthly course of education, usually after many hundreds or even thousands of births, many of them will leave during the tribulation or will be lifted up in another dimension during the rapture. The rapture is described as being lifted up in the air, but it is more like being lifted up in another dimension, and those who are go up, they can still see the hell down, dark storms, the police beating people, arresting them. But those down in the hell, they don't look up and see, and that is all in the vision which I had. It is in the video My Visions About the Future, Armageddon Very Soon. So that is one of the occasions on which good souls will depart for higher destinations in the universe. Also, Carlos Tanner many years ago had a vision of the entities, probably for Christians it will be angel, who were building the cities where these souls will be lifted to. I kind of believe that this will be other realms, maybe not exactly the new earth, but realms which are slightly higher. And yet, even in the Muslim sources, if you ask a Muslim preacher, he will say it is said in the Quran that all the believers will be lifted up during the rapture. And the Christians say, yes, all the believers will be raptured. But actually, in the prophecies in Nina and others, she says that many will be literally taken to heaven. She saw even few temples where genuine monks and nuns still pray. Just the entire building will be taken together with the sincere souls, and other people will be taken from their homes. But many others will be, because that will be at the time of the big prosecution, when the Antichrist feels that the judgment is very soon, and he orders finally all the godly people to be arrested or killed. And when the police goes after them, some will be raptured, but many others will be simply hidden behind invisible walls. And my understanding is that these will be the residents of the new earth who will continue to study here, and Christ will be their personal teacher, after that his son. So I have made this kind of fairy tale because in many prophecies, we read that there will be ruins on the new earth, there will be some cleaning up going on. So it seems that this earth, the way we know it now, there will be some connection between it and the new earth, while the places where the souls will be taken during the rapture, that seemed like brand new, really like what Carlos Tanner saw being built up especially for the future rapture. Well, for the sake of honesty, he did not use the word rapture himself, but the entities which he saw in his shamanic journey, they said that soon many souls will have to leave the earth and go to higher realms, so we are preparing the place for them. As far as the philosophy, or maybe some people will call it religion, of the future times, that will not be some sort of attempt to reconcile the existing religions so that everybody is satisfied, with some sort of political or philosophical maneuvering. Nothing like this. All the current beliefs will look like some sort of childish superstitions to those people with their opened vision, opened third eye in those times. That's why I'm not even sure that it's correct to classify their belief as some sort of religion, because a religion is kind of a political institution. And people start believing in such things when they stop perceiving God directly. But when that happens, they're still thirsty for that bliss that they remember or they have heard about from their forefathers. They believe in it, and that's when the third party, the religious preachers, come to tell them what to do with their lives. This will not be exactly the approach of Christ, though. The prophecies themselves say that he will be not just teaching by word, he will be showing to the people practically how things are and how the creation functions. According to Seth, from the existing religious books, the closest to that future philosophy are the Hindu books and the Zoroastrian, which the Zoroastrian teachings are not openly available, but the Hindu books are, so that is the closest. Maybe the word Veda will be also used in future times. Which doesn't mean at all that Christ will come to make everybody on earth Hindus. Definitely not. Actually, the very concept of Hindu and the word Hindu was conjured by the English to describe the culture they destroyed. And according to the Hindus themselves, Hinduism is just one application, one example of how to apply the Sanatana Dharma in practice. And the Sanatana Dharma are those original teachings from heaven. And it is exactly Sanatana Dharma that Christ will teach to us. In the set books, he calls it the teachings, the eternal teachings of the speakers, the culture, the civilization of the speaker, not exactly like this, but this eternal knowledge that is being transmitted to the people on earth by messengers, which he calls speakers, because they speak to the people and touch their hearts. And of course, Seth himself, he came and he dictated those books through the lips of Jane Roberts. And according to him, these writings are a peek in the future, like some sort of a fairy tale, like a symbol for blind people to give them a vague idea what will be the future of their grandchildren. And the same parasitic parties which have been undermining the traditional religions since centuries to bring them to their current deplorable condition, they of course took swift action and corrupted also in some respects the absolutely pure and I believe the best religion, the New Age religion started by Seth. And what is the result of their endeavors? The result is the misunderstandings which we hear very often from people who believe in the so-called law of attraction. You just imagine and it will happen, and they continue believing in that, although they can't change their destiny, but they do. And other examples of the fruits of the parasitic influence in the New Age is God is love, sex is sacred, so let's go for group sex, cheat on one's wife, sleep with unknown people just for fun, because God is fun and all these things. Or my favorite example, that I'm alcoholic, but I love myself, so I love being alcoholic as well, and I will continue to be so, because if I admit that alcoholism is wrong and realize that I better stop all this, then I will be hating myself, and that's the worst. This type of philosophies of which one will not be proud when the last judgment comes. So where is gonna be the capital of the new earth? That I don't know for sure, but as it is said in the Bible, it will be the same as the last time when Christ came. And where was that? Well, I'm not sure, but I found few hints and I'm gonna tell them to you. So as we know from the set material, when Christ came 1000 years ago, he came in three persons' bodies, because even a small particle of God is so big that one human body is unable to carry all that. And for that reason, Seth explains, we have like a kind of mixed up stories about the life of Christ, and we think it's all one person, but actually it's a cocktail made of events which happened to these three different people. So Seth did not provide details about these three incarnations, absolutely nothing about them, but I think we have information about at least two of them. One is in Judea, and the other one, according to the new chronology, he was actually a king in a region very near to where the recent Ukraine war took place. If you want to see on what evidence the new chronology project makes such a claim about the historic figure of Christ, you can find their materials, also I believe in English, for free on their website chronologia.org. They do have some convincing evidence actually that the historic figure of Christ was indeed a king in that region, and also in the older texts he's repeatedly described as our king. Now Alexander Paramonov, quoting completely different sources, he also says that the Christ figure was a king in that region, and that he will return again to the same place, and that's where his capital will be. The other argument in favor of this location as the possible new capital is that, as we know from the Nordic sagas and the Slavic Vedas, when originally the people, the race which some call the white gods, a race of the wise gods in Africa, they used to call them Mzungu. The Native Americans also had Caucasian gods with beards. In the Indian Vedas, they also had a special word for the Nordic white sages. So this is, I called them survivors in my previous videos. I coined a new term. But despite the plethora of different names, the race remains the same. And that race, when it first came to Earth, it made its nest on the shores of the Black Sea. So it makes sense that it will do that the next time when its main soul returns. This is my guess for now. It's only a guess. It should not be confused with the confirmed prophecies in the other episodes. And the good thing is that we'll find out if that's true or not very soon, because time will be running faster and faster, and this decade will be over before you know it. And despite the unbelievable madness brewing all around, I remain very positive. The prophecies are coming true, most definitely. Everything is on schedule, and I'm sure that the main character will make his appearance before we know it. This is a question by Yolanda. She says, access to technology has been both a curse and a blessing, and for a long time I've been fighting to sacrifice and let go of the bad sides of technology. Are you saying that computer gadgets are 100% bad? Well, you have listened to the videos about the gadgets and you understand I'm not saying they're 100% bad. It's like mixing very dangerous poison, let's say 5% poison, in 95% orange juice, wonderful organic orange juice. So does it matter? Is it really 5 or 1 or even 0.5%? The important is that the full drink is very toxic, it will harm you very much, and drinking it by following the logic, oh, it's 99% lovely organic juice, this logic will be useless. It will not change the toxicity of the entire drink. So you're saying that you're sacrificing and letting go the bad sides of technology. I mean, how is that possible? The poison is already mixed in the juice. How are you gonna separate it? You can't. I personally, I have reduced a lot the computer time. Manyfold I have reduced it, and I'm making arrangements to shift the computer to a very far room in the house. And ideally use it up to 15 minutes per day until I figure out how to get rid of all technology completely. That's my personal plan for now. So somebody sent this question about the homosexuals. It says, you said that homosexuals are born like this. Dear viewer, I said that some of them are born like this, which is quite a different thing. I don't know what is the actual percentage of such natural homosexual people, but it could be as low as 2 or 5. And I said that because I read it in the Set Books of Jane Roberts, which I consider the highest authority on everything. And over there, Set explains that indeed it develops because of childhood trauma, as you yourself mentioned later on in the question. And then the question continues. The lady says, so they just need a therapy. Well, I don't know if that change in childhood is reversible or not. But what I know for sure is that people who put such faith in the therapy, in the mainstream therapy, they may have problems during the end times, which are upon us, without any doubt, because mainstream medical care will be available only for the loyal followers of the Dajjal. It won't be available for the godly people. And then the question continues, so it's a subconscious choice, what do you think? Well, I will tell you what I think. It is exactly a subconscious choice. And the realm of subconscious, I mean, in the current world situation, would you really trust your subconscious and let a third party make modifications over there? What kind of party will be that? If you want to remain loyal to the light during the end times, it is obviously unacceptable to allow a known party to tamper with your subconscious and to be able personally to verify if the party that is healing you will remain loyal to Christ or is just the mainstream penguinian nonsense. You have to be already on such a high level that you will be able to do those subconscious changes yourself without their help anyway. So since you are asking for my personal opinion, it is like this. If you are not homosexual yourself, I would strongly advise you to forget and don't even think about the problems of other people and instead address your own fate in the mainstream medical so-called science. I think that will be a way more beneficial thing to do for your own soul. Or if you are a homosexual yourself and you are asking me what to do about it, because in the Bible and in the Islamic sources it is said that homosexuals will not enter the new earth. My personal guess, only guess, is that I don't know if it is a sin for the non-perverted homosexuals, if they will be banned as well. That I don't know, but even if they are doing a sin, still I think it will be more advantageous to look how to atone for that sin and remain loyal to Christ, because Christ said that he will accept even sinners in the new earth if they remain loyal to him, rather than accepting the mark of the beast in order to have access to so-called treatments which have killed or made sick millions of people.